everybody be on look.
However you treat me would be the same treatment you get back in return. I don't need you. I'm not your family. I'm not your...
I don't understand how driving up in front of women's houses, inviting them in the car, and then having unprotected sex allows you to then say later on, you know, I'm just not really into all this child support stuff. Yes, you are. You like child support.
How can you change
that's why
overnight?
they say don't judge a book by its cover, because Mr. Phillips, you got your little bow tie on, looking like you might leave here and go on to church.
Live by the sword, die by the sword. Well, the same goes for relationships. Turned lovers from friends with benefits, Miss Wilson and Mr. Phillips had zero trust for each other. But since little hope had entered their equation, paternity doubts have just made things worse.
The relationship started with sex and it ended because of sex.
Yes. When you build a relationship like that from the beginning, of course, you're gonna have extreme trust issues. And so 7 years later, we never got over our trust issues. It was you couldn't go to the store without accusing. We couldn't go.
Someone else was having sex or doing something.
Explaining to the judge how everything started, Miss Wilson sounded confident, testifying what she thought went wrong. And that was the very core of this relationship. However, the judge had some more digging to do. She decides to ask Mr. Phillips about his doubts.
We were separated at a point in time. During that point in time, she led me to believe that I was the only man that she was sexually involved with. But she let me know she was doing the clubs and she was dating people, but she was not sexually involved with anybody. One of my friends was inside the club with her. She was making love in the club. She was tongue kissing, she was grappling, she was going to the 10 with a guy.
If you find such an arrangement a shocker, well, let me tell you that Mr. Phillips had caught his ex-girlfriend making love in the club. Whoa, that's not a happy place to be at, and we all know what such revelations call for. Yeah, let's get that other gentleman in the witness box.
Mr. Phillips contends that you were with Ms. Wilson in the club, that you were kissing in the club.
I was.
Were you
weren't
kissing?
She was showing me how to kiss.
I'm a good teacher.
So you were at school getting a lesson.
That is correct, Your
Yes, I
Honor.
was
You
getting a lesson.
weren't really kissing her. It was a lesson.
Right.
Wait, what's happening? That's not normal, people. Like, how does someone go on doing that sort of stuff? Jeez, it's like she wanted baby daddy to doubt her. If kissing 101 wasn't enough, the woman had been roaming around on vacations with the same man.
I have a son that is Mexican black.
A
She's
biracial
identical
child.
to my son. They are twins.
And you say this child resembles your child, so it leads you to believe that this child is as well.
Yes.
That's his imagination. Even if I did sleep with the man in question, it was my business, not his.
What did we just hear? Let's just leave it there and focus on figuring out who the father is. Also, don't let the bow tie fool you. Mr. Phillips himself has been living the street life. So these adults meddling around have now given birth to another child seeking paternity.
You two established this anything goes, thrill-seeking, let's be single and have fun relationship.
Yes.
But then it backfired.
She knew in my whole delivery that I was a player, that I was a bachelor, that I was living that life when she met me.
If we can all just be a little responsible in what we do and how we plan to make life choices. Ain't that right? Both parties were in the courtroom to solve this paternity triangle, feeling the anticipation of the DNA results in the room. This is how it all went down.
Mr. Phillips, you are her father.
Give me a break. There's a streak of such paternity cases? Well, all right, here's another one. As absurd as it may sound, a Facebook connection resulted in a one-night stand, and now Mr. Williams denies fathering an 8-month-old baby girl. Buckle up for this one.
Mr. Williams knows this baby is his. He's been running for 9 months now.
So you say he's done nothing for the baby?
Nothing.
You haven't done anything, Mr. Williams?
No, Your Honor, this is not my baby. She knows she's sleeping around with other men, and she's trying to put a baby on me that's not mine, so...
So you just admittedly haven't done anything?
No, Your Honor.
As the baby sleeps offset, the courtroom is in session, eager to determine her fate. Ms. Jackson made it clear that they reached out to each other online, and one thing led to another. After some time, she missed her cycle, and as soon as she told this to Mr. Clownface, he ghosted his baby mama-to-be.
You had sex with her without protection, right?
Everybody else did too, right?
Everybody else? Everybody else like who? Who is everybody else?
Well,
who is everybody else?
I want to know, like Miss Jackson, who is everybody else?
She know who everybody else is.
I contacted him again when I found out that I was actually pregnant. He blocked me on Facebook.
What was the defendant thinking? Well, sir, it's a reminder for you that your actions have consequences. Instead of ghosting your responsibilities, man up, face the music. But anyway, here's what she did after getting blocked on Facebook.
I created a fake page.
Created a fake page.
A fake page and reached out to him again to let him know that I was indeed pregnant.
And did you ever get any response?
No.
So you were
Fake page.
ignoring this.
Yes, fake pages, and I don't allow disrespect. You calling me about something and you disrespecting me, that's a no-no.
Yeah, that's right. Now you got standards. Come on, man. Use that third brain of yours for something else. However, he continuously explains the entire events through his understanding at best. If that wasn't all dumb enough for you, well, listen here. Here's what he has to say next.
And so you felt like she was chasing you down about the baby because she needed support for the baby, and you felt like she was targeting you.
Yeah, she was targeting me, reason being, she stated that she had sex with another dude right the next gate behind me. So, and then once she told me that, I said, why are you chasing me down?
With each added testimony, things are just getting more complicated. And now there was another man in the picture. This allegation needed an immediate response from Miss Jackson. She begins by putting all the details on the table that had Judge Lake preaching.
I called him, yes, and I did tell him that I was with somebody else.
The day after?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you didn't use protection?
No, Your Honor.
So did you tell this other man you were pregnant as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you tell this other man it could potentially be his baby as well?
No, Your Honor.
Did you put this other man on child support?
No, Your Honor.
Judge Lake wasn't going to stop there, as she found out that the baby mama had put both the men on child support, knowing she had been promiscuous. Miss Jackson had some sense talking coming her way. That might expose some hard-learned truth.
These are the issues as a young woman you have to understand that perpetuates the cycle of paternity issues.
Right.
Because I see too often men come in this courtroom saying, well, why she named me? It's not that they are not equally as at fault in the situation.
However, their to and fro allegations were all over and made things more complicated, and Miss Plaintiff was busy with her storytelling streak. So the last hope to get closure was to reveal whatever was hiding in the DNA envelope. Let's go ahead and find out.
Mr. Williams, you are the father.
I told you.
You said you don't mind no child support, so we're not
well,
gonna have any problems.
It won't have no problems.
Good.
I apologize for everything.
Solving another paternity maze. This time, Judge Lake encounters two potential sisters claiming Mr. Sandiford is their biological father, who believes one is his child and is certain the other is not. Oh, this case was a mess right from the start.
Mr. Sandiford, so you said you had been there for her whole life.
No, ma'am, not her whole life.
So you've been there in what capacity?
I would say half of it.
And you acted as a father?
No, he did not.
Okay, so the daughter and potential father had issues, and they surfaced as soon as the case was opened. Judge Lake asked the defendant to shed light on his doubts, and oh boy, he was prepping for this all his life. He went by the book, explaining everything.
I was upset, Your Honor, at that point in time because she just kept on aggravating me about money, and that's the only time I've ever heard from her is when it was money.
You've never done anything for me. With me.
What do you mean I have never done anything?
You've never
for you?
done
I carried you to the park, I carried you to the fairs.
When?
Oh, that got turned around quickly. Like they say, grass isn't always greener on the other side. The alleged father had no empathy whatsoever, but Miss Plaintiff had it all written in her eyes. Although old daddy was sure of what he thought was true, Miss Plaintiff had some more wounds to scratch at.
When I was 13 years old, January, my grandmother passed away, and right after that, I lost my grandfather. On my grandfather's deathbed, he specifically asked my dad if he would take care of his girls, stating me and my mom. He said yes. If he wasn't my father, why would he?
Your mother found another man in her life, so why
And
did I
he's
need
took
to be
care
in
of
the
me, so
picture?
what does
He
that
has?
matter?
Okay,
He's took
all
care of
right.
me.
Mr. Sandiford claimed that there was another man at the hospital at the time Miss Samantha was born. Now, this one unusual claim has a fun part to it. Only the alleged father knows if he was lying or not. After this, with both parties immediately looking for closure, the session proceeds something like this.
Why were you there as a friend instead of as a potential or new father?
No, if I was the father, because she slept with so many different men.
Upon calling Miss Boyer at the podium, she in testimony also claims the same. But wait right there, folks. The Big Daddy has some ammunition locked and loaded in his gun. he presents the court with evidence to which Miss Plaintiff responded unappreciated.
The reason there is another man on my birth certificate, Your Honor, is because my mother was married and separated.
And told me I was the father.
But because she was still married back 30 years ago, you had to put your husband on the birth certificate.
Mr. Sandifer, you were there when Tuesday was born,
Yes,
Ms.
Your
Boyer?
Honor.
Ugh, we're now witnessing just a mess. The alleged father sounds way too sure about his stance and isn't letting anyone climb the ladder. Today, luck wasn't on Miss Boyer's side either. In another attempt to make him believe she's right, she states some more facts to make him question whether this is all black or white.
After that entire legal battle, did you believe Ms. Boyer was your biological child?
Not really, Your Honor, because I still have doubts just because of the paperwork.
If you're not my dad, why did you fight for me?
Because I love you and I manned up.
This is just one big family tug of war. Neither one was willing to step down and accept what went wrong. And years after, they all have to go through such turmoil. And as you know, Judge Lake has a reputation of staying on the theme, and so decided to pull out that good old DNA envelope.
It has been determined by this court, Mr. Sandifer are not her father. In the case of Fields Boyer v. Sandifer, court has determined Mr. Sandifer are not her father.
Miss Robinson had to roll up to the court along with her boyfriend to prove he is the biological father of her 2-month-old fraternal twins. He believes that he wasn't the only man painting in white. Ugh, gross. A pure example of what we call maternity is a matter of fact, but paternity is a matter of opinion.
He accused me of sleeping with everybody named Mama. Seriously.
Have you been accusing her of sleeping with everybody,
No,
Mr.
Your
Smith?
Honor. I don't accuse her with sleeping with everybody and her mama. It's only certain people I accuse her of sleeping with.
The trial began with Miss Robinson explaining the nature of their relationship. Turns out it wasn't all sunshine in the beginning. But as time passed, the foundation of the relationship was shaken by constant accusations of committing infidelity. Oh boy, that's a classic one.
She came and got me from work one day. He would confront me about a parking spot. You know what I'm saying? I had a doubt in my mind.
Wait, he confronted you about a parking spot, so you looked at her and said, you sleeping with him?
The twins' daddy was paranoid about multiple factors. He didn't buy all the show that was put up by Miss Robinson. However, he has more genuine doubts to portray before he reaches an ultimate conclusion. This is what he further added to his testimony.
Is this the only man you think she's potentially sleeping with?
Almost my brother, my friend. Like, he come over there unannounced all the time.
No, you was lying. He came to the house one time looking for you.
He came over there multiple times without me even knowing. I'm at work.
Lord.
Why?
You gonna sit here and lie like that in court?
So these concerns have made Mr. Smith protective about his girlfriend. But this sounded like a deep-rooted insecurity to me. Well, anyway, Judge Lake calls in the accused best friend to shed some light on what's happening. This is what he has to say.
Have you had a relationship with Ms. Robinson? Have you been showing up over that house while Mr. Smith was at work?
All right, first off, it was one time. I want to go party. He don't pick up his phone most of the time, so I pull up over there.
And we know it only takes one time to have a baby in this courtroom.
Mr. Plaintiff also brought a timeline explaining how he didn't think the conception dates added up. And damn, no amount of justification is gonna make him stop believing what he thinks. He explains to the judge what adds lemon to his imagination.
I have major proof.
He don't
major
have no
is
proof.
I was incarcerated from the 20th of July to the 3rd. We had sex one time. A week or so later, she tell me she's 2 weeks pregnant.
So your real issue is the timeline. And the window of conception.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if that wasn't enough for Mr. Paranoid, his girlfriend reveals another interesting detail of the story that's got me wondering. What childhood trauma would you experience to make your brain think like that? Let's see what she has to say.
When I went to the hospital, he had left to get some food. And when he went to go get some food, the babies end up coming. He missed it, but he was up there, and then he came and seen my babies, and he gonna go out in the hallway and tell my mama, my babies look like somebody else.
Well, Mr. Smith, in my conclusion, sir, you might be in the wrong profession. You should really consider being a private investigator. Well, back to the hearing. After all the lies and the testimony, it's time for Judge Lake to give this couple some clarification on their concerns. Who wants to say it with me this time? Show us the results!
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Smith, you are the father.
Hey!
What are you feeling in this moment, Mr. Smith?
We been going through a lot of stuff, man.
These are all God's children. Those children belong to God. Those are God's children we are playing with. She didn't ask to be here.
No, she didn't. Why would you put Miss Smith and her daughter through this drama without just saying from the beginning?
After the Smith family's son's tragic death, Miss Laster and Miss Hicks unexpectedly came forward claiming that the demised fathered a child with each of them. Two women with almost the same storyline on their lips just confused the plaintiff. So, they came to Judge Lake.
Miss Hicks, you say the Smith family has a personal vendetta against you, and that is the only reason why they're denying your 3-year-old son, Jakari. Miss Laster, you testify that you are heartbroken that the Smith family is denying your 4-year-old son, Malachi.
Miss Hicks was sure that Mr. Travis was the father, but the plaintiff wasn't buying it. However, the young baby mama had some genuine reason to believe that. Nonetheless, first, let's watch how Miss Smith testified a plethora of her doubts.
The day of my brother passing, the family had came over to the house and then we heard a knock on the door. It was Brittany. She popped up like a Pop-Tart.
She popped up like a Pop-Tart?
Yeah, big and pregnant.
Lies.
Big and
lies,
pregnant.
Lies.
Yes, and she said she was pregnant with my brother's baby. I was shocked, really, because she had never been around the family, never came to us once
Girl,
and said
used
that she
to
was
be at your
pregnant.
house.
However, as far as the defendant was concerned, there was another sweet mystery that further acts as a catalyst to all the concerns against Mr. Travis. This makes sure no wonder he had been living a colorful life.
She came after the fact my brother hadn't passed, and she said, can Malachi stay tonight? You want to keep your nephew? And I just was looking crazy like my nephew. I said, okay, because I'm thinking, because they're my nieces, I'm going to claim him as my nephew. Come on, he can stay tonight too. And then she was like, this really could be your brother's child. So I was like, oh.
Never mind, both the defendants were certain in what they had to say, but Miss Smith, being the Messiah to death and with the potential father gone, wasn't ready to let them climb the barricade. She had an explanation for everything these baby mamas were putting her through.
Did your brother ever tell you or say anything about
No,
Miss
ma'am.
Hicks being pregnant?
No, ma'am. I don't know where she get all this making up story. I don't understand. My brother was dead and gone when she came to the house and said she was pregnant.
You was on the phone and invited me over. Be real.
You don't know what was going on.
Why you ain't stepped to me? You don't have my talent.
Let's get some more.
By now, it looked like this paternity game was far from being over. The discussion only gave feathers to the notion that Miss Smith was here in the court for a reason, not wanting anyone to have the death benefits of her brother unless the baby is proven to be Mr. Travis's. But just listen to what Miss Lester has to claim.
I had Malachi DNA tested too, which came out to be 99.9% not his. So that's how I know for sure he's not the other guy's.
99.9% not his?
Yes.
I thought it'd be 0%.
Anyway, with enough confusion going on in the courtroom, Judge Lake knew all that mattered to the Smiths was the DNA result, because they surely didn't want to get invested in babies who weren't related to them. So, let's get to that envelope, shall we?
The percentage of relatedness is 0.00%. You are not related. The percentage of relatedness is 0.00%. You are not related.
Here's to another conundrum of absent fatherhood. Miss Connolly wasn't sure if the defendant is the biological father to her 23-year-old daughter. Being a hustler back in the day made the alleged drop his avuncular hat and scoot out of the family picture. Hence, the session commences.
I've never had a lot of friends. I've only kept about 2 or 3 friends. And then I have to deal with the reality of my own father, who's alive and well, not in jail, not dead, not in another state. He's living in the same state and has not tried to contact me, doesn't want to be around me. That hurts.
Aw, the poor girl always wanted to be the daddy's little princess. But we don't always get what we desire, now do we? Anyway, Mr. Harrison knew what pain he had caused to the young plaintiff, and that's why he stood looking guilty for his actions and was ready to answer, and had a lot to say regarding his doubts.
We had a relationship, and one daughter was born, and at the part time, she said, well, that's not your child.
But it wasn't your child.
Right, so I just kept on.
It was proven to be so.
Right, well, no, it wasn't proven. She said it wasn't mine, so I took her word for it. And as we kept progressing, she got pregnant again with our teacher, and I thought it was my child, so I stayed with her and tried to do the right thing.
Well, that explains why the daddy wasn't willing to connect with his alleged daughter, Miss Orticia. But just wait for a second. What was the Big Mama up to in her past? She also had some bitter confessions to make.
He thought she was at first, and then doubt began to set in. Were you certain Mr. Harrison was Articia's father?
No, I wasn't, because at that time, I'm ashamed of myself because I was living a fast life. I was a party girl, like, you know, when I used to go out a lot, I used to sell drugs, hang in the street, party animal.
So Miss Connolly wasn't sure herself, and she testified to having a promiscuous past. Nonetheless, at least now she's honest. Coming back to the hearing, the plaintiff had more things to clarify, because as of today, she was on a truth streak, and she was going to let everything out in just one go.
We moved in an apartment together, and at that point, then it was kind of like, you know, he was a Bama, he was a country person, you know, he went to church, and I was just used to hanging out in the street, so, you know, me and my girlfriend, you know, we would go out, and I was a little promiscuous, you know, fast. I got pregnant with my oldest child, and come to find out that, you know, it wasn't his child.
All right.
Can someone explain how you can be a good wife selling drugs? Well, Miss Connolly believed she was. Ironic, right? If that wasn't enough, living the street life of OG had put old Mama through some adventures.
Were you with many different men or just one other man besides Mr. Harrison? Several. Okay.
But my point is that I think 23 years, if they're asking the question, why now, why not now? But I think this could have stopped a long time ago. She would have went to court and asked for child support. That would have solved all this right then and there.
She said she did. She
I
got
did.
behind you.
I did.
Hustling, partying, and now even getting locked up. Sounds like Big Mama G was the game in her old days. But that has made her child suffer. However, Mr. Harrison raised another question that solidified his claim, but the plaintiff stood ignorant of what he said.
If you felt I was the father or possibly the father, then why wouldn't you go down
stopped that long time ago
and go to the courts and request child support, and then they would have found me?
That's correct.
And we would have had a DNA test 20-something years ago.
Correct. That's correct.
So because that didn't happen, in your mind, you began to doubt even more.
Right.
Knowing that both parties have been looking for closure, Judge Lake was aware of the fact that now only the DNA envelope is the critical anticipation in the room. So she went straight forward to setting the record straight.
Connolly versus Harrison when it comes to 23-year-old Articia Connolly. Mr. Harrison, you are her father.
Congratulations. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Scrubby confusion's going on, as Mr. Cooper was certainly sure that in light of the recent events, it was impossible he fathered Miss Canterbury's 2-year-old son. He wants nothing to do with child support. Usual claim, right? But that's what this court's all about.
I watch people come in here all the time, and some people be good men and get criticized, and then they be sitting here, then all they want is just the money from them, and it ain't gonna be me today.
And you're convinced that Jaden's not your biological child.
She know that baby ain't mine. That's like she just called me last night talking about some, would you be mad if he wasn't yours?
What? That's a lie, though. That's a lie.
Well, that's one bold testimony. Pointing fingers at the defendant, Mr. Cooper had some more concerns to show regarding baby mama's past. Seems like he'd been preparing for this day all his life.
Well, we only had sex like 3 or 4 times together, that's it. And he told me while we were having sex that he wanted me to have his baby.
I'm gonna stop you right there. Your Honor, she's a lie. I never said that.
But you did.
What did you say?
I see it. I'm enjoying this moment right now in so many words. That's all I said, Your Honor.
Mr. Cooper seems like he's holding something against the mommy. The guy was a total scapegoater. And the plaintiff wasn't done at all. Just listen to how he found out about Miss Canterbury's pregnancy. Man, there's just one thing after another.
I got a call. My mama called me. Some girl here with a baby. Huh? I'm still a baby. What you mean, baby? That's how I felt. I'm like, man, you got me messed up. I ain't got no kids.
And that is the first time you've ever heard about Jaden. Your mom calls you and says, it's a girl over here with a baby.
The plaintiff was holding an arsenal of doubts, and it seemed like he'd be ready to believe it was his child when pigs fly. Or, of course, DNA proves it. nonetheless, in a spiral of previous allegations, another situation emerges from the dark that shook the entire courtroom. And Miss Canterbury owes everyone some explanation.
If you had a baby and you thought a man was your potential baby father, once you let him know whether he is or he not, you would say something and you would let him know it's a potential. You could be. You would say that, right?
Of course, but I wouldn't have a potential.
Nobody stuck in the dark, living a lie. Man, she admitted to being with other dudes. Everything. When I met her, she was already messing with other people when I first met her.
Without even flinching an eye, Miss Canterbury stayed firm on her claims. But wait right there. What about all of the accusations being rubbed in her face? And even clarifying about the timeline wasn't helping, because the potential father had brought the conception calendar to the court.
This is the first time we had sex. I wore a condom.
Nope.
Second time we had sex was this week through the 28th. And I remember it was threesome. We was all drunk.
You are definitely a lie.
How are you so sure you wore the condom?
Judge, I woke up with it on. It was on me.
Well, Mr. Cooper, not just you. We all came here to find out if the baby is yours or not. But anyway, the dramatic theater of doubts was still on, and both parties were desperately waiting for the results. Hence, here comes the paternity truth envelope, and it reads as follows.
It has been determined by this court, Mr. Cooper, you are the father.
Like I said.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Thank you, Your Honor, for those results. I will leave you alone. I will do
No,
everything
you won't,
want me to
because
do.
you got a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old to take care of.
Coming up in another encounter with Judge Lake, Ms. Burks drags her boss from work to paternity court, who's alleged to have fathered her 4-year-old daughter. Well, they must have both taken the job too seriously.
He asked you for a massage and he ended up massaging you?
That's incorrect, Your Honor. What happened was, one day we was together, we all got drunk after a day of work. She asked me, could she spend the night in my home? And she asked to massage my back and my feet.
He lying, Messiah. That's
because we
a lie. That's a lie.
We're not sure if this was part of her job description or who asked for it first, but the child is here and baby mama is answerable to her. However, trying to smartly get away with the allegations, Mr. Smith said one thing after another. But wait, Miss Plaintiff has everything mapped down to the last detail.
Why such a discrepancy, though? She says it was ongoing for almost 2 years. Yeah. You say it was only one time.
Because for that 2-year span, when she was saying that was this supposedly relationship, she was literally telling our friends and co-workers that I was her boyfriend.
That's not true.
Standing firm on his grounds, Mr. Smith didn't even blink while testifying to what he believed. But wait, Ms. Longbraids had all her cards placed to counter the allegation being put up by the defendant. Look what her brother has to say in this testimony.
I was working for him for a period of time as well. When I go home, them guys would still be at work. They'd be like spending the nights together, so.
Can I respond to that?
I would like that.
Reason why, Your Honor, she would spend nights at my home was because now my business was in my home. So there was also another male partner who stayed in my home as well.
There was a lot more going on than being told by both parties, as if they're hiding something. But they're in front of Judge Lake, and today was the day when slipping emotions or words won't be doing them any favors. However, I wonder, what took him so long to petition a paternity test?
I will admit that I did not find out if the child was mine as much as I should have in hindsight. This young lady came to me and told me at the time that this was not my child.
Look at her. She looks just like him.
Your Honor, the only reason that is an issue is because the gentleman who she was with at the time is very similar to my exact features as well.
After this, the defendant went on to state his testimony. And surprisingly, Miss Plaintiff wasn't letting the end loose. Come on, you can't be lying for that long. However, among all the concerns being tabled by Mr. Smith, he told the court something that no one was expecting. Oh, man!
I've had Messiah in my home several times living with me because of Ms. Burke's inability to keep a safe environment for Messiah. And the reason why I did that is because I did not want to see the child go through the same situation Ms. Burks did.
Isn't that just considerate on the defendant's part? But was he telling the truth? That's for Judge Lake to find out. However, consistently not agreeing with what Mr. Smith has to say, Miss Plaintiff gets noticed by everyone in the courtroom.
Who is Messiah calling daddy?
Me, the reason, Your Honor, she called me daddy is because when she can't, or when she falls down, I've always been the one there to get and take
off
them
and
out.
on.
Mr. Smith, you say Messiah calls you daddy.
Yes,
Have you stepped up to the plate consistently?
consistently.
Talking about who's lying or who's not isn't gonna solve anything. With all this being said and done, it was time for the results, as both of them were desperately waiting for them for about 4 years, and their long wait was finally about to end. Let us have some insight into how the DNA situation went down.
It has been determined by this court, Mr. Smith, you are not her father.
What?
You are not her father, sir.
At the time, Gilbert was working. He wasn't showing me the affection and everything. He wasn't being the man that I wanted at the time.
Did you cheat on your husband 11 times?
No, I did not, but yes, I did cheat on him. We were married when I was 16 years old. I was just a kid.
An engaged couple, parent of 2 children. However, the crack is that Mr. De Leon doubted paternity of both of them. And if you're wondering why such atrocious claims, well, the plaintiff believed that Ms. Ramirez has been unfaithful throughout the relationship, and now everything rode on those results.
Your Honor, that I'm very disappointed in Gilbert for everything. Gilbert was homeless at the time when I first met him, and I asked my mom if he can move in with us, and she said yes. My mom saw that he was smoking weed. That was a big no. She told him to leave, and I was in love with him, and I followed him. And I believed him that he was gonna take care of me, and he lied. So it was hard.
Next, we got to see 2 varied extreme narratives from both sides. According to the defendant, he received a call from his fiancée breaking the news of her pregnancy, claiming it was his. However, that was not how it went down, according to Ms. Ramirez.
At the time, when me and Gilbert were together, we got in a big argument. I left and I met someone else, an old friend, slept with him, went back to Gilbert a few days later. And he decided—
Excuse me, I find that incorrect. You called me while I was working with my father.
And he decided
and you told me
to
that
stay.
there was my child and that I should come and be in the hospital with you. You let me know that that was my kid.
Okay.
It seemed like the guy wasn't going to back down that easily. He delivered some harsh truths that led him to suspect the plaintiff of infidelity and lying, though he gave her the benefit of the doubt, and all of that generosity didn't go in his favor.
I found text messages on her phone about another guy stating, you know, hey, I like the way you hugged me today, how you ran and jumped up on me and I held you. You know, can we see for lunch tomorrow? And I confronted her about this to give her the benefit of the doubt to see if she would tell me the truth. And she consecutively lied until I brought him up on her phone and caught her red-handed.
The guy at the podium seemed to be having a hands-on approach to everything. Jack of all trades, am I right? But do you blame him? With mommy acting so mature, still he came up with compassion of being there for the birth.
Did you bond with the child?
I was
Did
there.
you step up to the plate
I was there
regardless of your
for the
doubt?
child's birth. I delivered the child by hand. The doctor didn't do it. I'm the one that put on the gloves, the apron, and everything. I pulled the child out of her. There was nobody else there to deliver that child. I did that to both of my children.
Yes, but you refused to sign the birth certificate.
How would I be sure if you slept with quite a few other people?
Baby mama had been strangely silent throughout the time her fiancé stated his case. Eventually, she revealed the circumstances that led her to cheat on him, which made us question, was the young girl only to be blamed in all of this?
At the time, Gilbert was working. He wasn't showing me the affection and everything. He wasn't being the man that I wanted at the time. He would leave at 6 in the morning. He would get home at 12 at night,
I worked
smelling
all
like
day.
weed.
I worked all day.
What you were saying is he was not, he wasn't just working.
He was
using that excuse and was doing other things.
Yes.
Next up, we got to see the cheating parade of Miss Ramirez through the fiancé's point of view. And boy, did he have some colorful stories about her to share. The plaintiff, on the other hand, pulled the nasty move and showed no remorse, not even a little bit. Furthermore, she straight up took the knife and pushed it into the poor guy's heart even more with her next revelation.
He was working all the time, and it's still to this day, it is still like that.
But I'm saying, what would then lead you to sleep with the roommate?
Just to. It was just to, because I didn't want to be at my mom's house. I didn't care if I was with him. It was just to be away. And
But you weren't away because you were in the house where he lived.
Mr. De Leon was just an escape route for this woman, nothing more. And she made a fool out of him as much as she could. Alas, the baby daddy had still more suffering to go through. The guy couldn't catch a break. He ended up receiving a random message on good old Facebook regarding the paternity of her baby, and it was shocking.
I'm going to do your job as a man and take care of my family while you have fun over there with your cars. I'm gonna be the man that you weren't for my kids. We will see you in court.
And that's right there.
That's directed to you.
Yes. After this child was born, she ended up leaving me and telling me that these kids aren't mine over an argument because I'm working too much.
Miss Ramirez was just now embarrassing herself in this court, plain and simple. She had no regard for her fiance, whom she put through so much hurt for all these years. So much so, she thought he was the stupid one of this equation. Wow.
My parents don't like her. Once they found out she was cheating on me, they didn't want anything to do with her. They disbelieved that these children were their grandchildren.
But how stupid is that these kids look all like you, Gilbert?
But you had sex with 7 other people.
That doesn't matter. These kids look
wait a
like
minute,
you.
Ms. Ramirez.
Throughout our relationship, Your Honor,
Let me tell you something. It does matter.
We've seen enough of Miss Ramirez's brutality. She was the cold one with questionable morals. It was time to put the defendant out of his misery and clear up the doubts regarding paternity. Here's the results.
When it comes to 2-year-old Ian, Mr. De Leon, you are his father. As it pertains to 1-year-old Annalise, Mr. De Leon, you are her father.
Mr. Simpson and Miss Davis rekindled the relationship after 15 years of separation. However, due to the unfaithfulness of the wife in the past, the defendant denied that he fathered their 2-year-old Elizabeth.
Your Honor, I think it's ludicrous. He's being an idiot. I know that she is his, and I'm tired of our past coming into play.
Your Honor, for a fact, I've known 11 times that she's cheated in her previous relationships.
11 times?
Yes, ma'am. And
She's cheated in your previous relationship?
previous relationship.
It seemed that the plaintiff led an eventful life with a promiscuous reputation. The dude kept count of all the times his wife had cheated on him, which by regular standards here on this court was a lot.
We were married 15 years ago, and she tells me after I get off work to stay in the house. She got somebody that come and visit her. Okay, I stay in the house. Somebody pulls in my driveway. I walk out and she's in the car making out with these people.
In front of your house?
Yes.
And you're inside?
Yes.
The guy got betrayed 11 times and still chose to reconnect with the ex-wife. Stupid or just hopelessly romantic? Well, they're here in paternity court, so safe to assume it didn't turn out the way he had hoped.
You felt like motherhood had matured her.
Yes, as it would anyone.
Okay.
But there's a lot of coincidences, the same as before, that she's going out, sitting in cars middle of the night, and I get family and friends telling me that she's bringing guys in my house all the time.
So wait, this is the second time around you say the coincidences and all of the stories are still the same.
Yes.
Next up, we had a front row seat of an embarrassing situation for the poor defendant. Whoa, but kudos to him. He still managed to pull through. Hats off. The doubts, on the other hand, told a different story.
The first month we're together, she's taking a pregnancy test every week, once, twice a week.
Even though you couldn't perform initially because of the stress, you see her taking pregnancy tests.
Yes, ma'am.
During this first month?
Yes, numerous.
And so you're saying to yourself, it couldn't be me.
A friend of the baby mama entered the picture. There always is in these situations. Although Miss Davis was consistent in her habits and patterns, apart from everything else, these red flags led to the downfall of the relationship again.
Why not just say, hey, come on by? And then, I mean, he's in the house, just why you gotta be in the car?
Because he's too jealous.
I mean, let's be honest. You cheated 11 times before, or maybe not 11, but you admitted you cheated. Now you're sitting out in front of the house with another man having conversations for 2 to 3 hours. He's gonna think something's going on either way.
Well, Mr. Simpson got a page out of his ex-wife's playbook. Join them if you can't beat them, right? He had enough of his wife making a fool out of him, so he showed her that two can play at this game.
It wasn't like that. I mean, it was, I didn't think she was able to be truthful, faithful, and
You lost hope at that point.
Yes,
After
and-
the thing in the car,
Yes.
it just felt like your life was replaying over again.
Yes, I mean, it's like a book. You can only go through it so many times.
And so you decided at that point she's up to the old.
Yeah, the old tricks.
Come on. You would think there wouldn't be any more complications now that all this was out in the open. But no, you'd be wrong. This truly was a disaster in the making with all the right ingredients, cooked and served hot by these guys.
Do you sign the birth certificate?
No, they won't let me
Why?
because she's still married.
So you were willing to sign it, but they wouldn't let you because she was technically still legally married to somebody else, and because of that, baby Elizabeth has your last name.
Actually, I just refused to put his name on the birth certificate altogether.
You refused to put
my husband.
Things took an interesting turn. By the looks of it, the potential father loved baby Elizabeth. However, he had serious doubts, and these doubts became more prominent as the defendant revealed a juicy tidbit.
So you believe there's a very real chance that the other man could be the father, but because you are going to get this settlement, she's trying to say that you're the father because she's witnessed what an amazing father you are, and she knows Elizabeth will be taken care of and provided.
Will be.
All the defendant wanted was the truth regarding the paternity of baby Elizabeth. The judge, thankfully, had those results in the envelope, and all that was left for us to do was open it. So, here it goes.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Simpson, you are the father.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
We have a tormented man here who brought his ex-girlfriend and her fiancé to court. He claimed he fathered baby Timothy and was here to get his custody. The couple, on the other hand, believed otherwise.
Ms. Parker, you claim to be 100% positive that Mr. Montgomery is not your son's biological father because your fiance, Mr. Lanou, is.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, you say today's DNA test will finally allow you to get rid of Mr. Montgomery and allow you to remove his name from your son's birth certificate.
Yes, Your Honor.
Things heated up fast. Mr. Lanou shed light on how he ended up getting together with baby mama, knowing she was also involved with the plaintiff at that time, and manipulated him playing the daddy. On the contrary, Mr. Montgomery didn't agree with that version. Obviously. Between us, Mr. Lanou definitely gives off a sly vibe.
One at a time. One at a time.
A mutual friend of mine and hers introduced us. He wasn't even in the picture this time. She still had strong feelings for him, so I stepped back and let him come back. In the meantime, we're finding out that he's talking to her friends, talking to other women.
Right, but you prying on a woman who's with another man, right?
Yeah, pound that gavel, Judge. We need some order from this court. They disrespected this court like it was their mama's house. But anyway, Miss Parker was having her cake and eating it too. While her current fiance was pumped up and ready to pound one out with the ex-boyfriend, she was off being naughty with both of them in the same house.
You were sleeping with Miss Parker while Mr. Montgomery would be in the house.
Upstairs in the shower. I even told him that we were sleeping together, and all he
No,
did,
you didn't.
we was face to face, and all he did was walk to the stairs, sit down, and cry. I straight up told him, name a date, name a place. If you got a problem, you can square up with me any day I want back there.
The woman ended up getting pregnant. So, when did Mr. Montgomery get to know he was being played like a fiddle? As it turns out, Mommy chose a compromising time to drop the bomb on his head. Yeesh!
The first time she was able to have sex after the baby was born, she waited until after we were done to sit there and
No,
tell
I
me,
had sex
oh,
with Luke
you know,
before I had sex
he's,
with Jill."
you know, I don't think you're the father. I think, you know, Luke's the father. And I'm still laying in the bed with this woman naked.
You know, it was hurting me. It was killing me
Couldn't tell me
inside. No, because I was
Couldn't
too
tell me when he
scared.
was born?
We got to see the birth certificate, which had the ex-boyfriend's name. Even though the woman was knocking boots with both of them, she was still officially with the alleged father, and Mr. Lanou didn't even grace the hospital with his presence. Shocking!
Right, this is when she was with me, you know, I was supposed to sit there and be
You-
engaged to her, and now a month, you know, here we are about, what, 2 months later almost, and all of a sudden she's engaged to another man. I mean, I just don't see how you can move that fast from one man to another man, feeling, you know, like you love a person that much, sit there and get engaged that quick, when you supposedly love me the way you say you do.
I did love
love you.
Next up, we witness Mr. Montgomery just pouring his heart out and narrating the incident that took place on Father's Day. The poor fella couldn't keep it together anymore as he desperately explained how much he loved the little guy.
Oh, well, on the off chance that, you are Timothy's father, I thought you would like to see him on Father's Day. I respected that, it made me feel good. I took his picture off the background of my phone because I can't look at his picture more than 2 minutes without bursting into tears. This is my son, and it was dragged away from me by a conniving man who decided to sit there and come in between a relationship.
Now was the time to decide the fate of baby Timothy, which was sealed shut in that envelope. Mr. Montgomery couldn't hold it anymore, and frankly, neither could we. So, let's get on with it. You ask me, my fingers are also crossed. I'm really hoping Mr. Montgomery will get those awaited-for words.
It has been determined by this court, Mr. Montgomery, you are not the father. Mr. Lanou, you are the father. He could have left. Why? He could have left a baby that he thought was his biological child. Do not look at this man and say, you could have left. You ruined your own life.
We've had a connection ever since the day that I met her mom because she was born and her mama said I was the father.
Kaimani's just a 1-year-old boy who's been dragging in the middle of this war between Mr. Walker and Miss DeVos. According to the potential father, the defendant had him fooled for the longest time, thinking Kaimani was his son, but now had turned cold on him.
The reason why you haven't seen my son in 6 months is because he is not the father.
That's simple.
Yeah, I regret letting him sign the birth certificate, and I feel bad because I let him do it, but I just wanted to get the truth out today and just figure out he's not the father so I can get him off the birth certificate.
The entire audience enters into shock when baby mama so proudly says that she regrets getting the plaintiff to sign the birth certificate. Now, can you blame the poor guy for being so broken and demanding to know the results so he could have visitation rights?
When I find out that she's pregnant, I really just start to prepare myself mentally, and I also was just looking for work. I had 2 jobs at the time. I was really trying to just prepare myself for everything. I know what it means to have a child. I didn't really have a dad growing up, and I grew up in the system, and I don't know. I like babies.
So this was your first child?
Yes, Your Honor.
The worst part was Miss DeVos, who had told him the child was his. Now, suddenly, she's taking it all away from him and hasn't let Mr. Walker see his baby boy for 6 months. As mommy suddenly remembered that she slept with someone else during the conception window.
I was with him and someone else.
So that's why we're here. So you admit you were also intimate with another person during the window of conception.
Yes, Your Honor.
And that's the person you believe is Kamani's biological father.
I just felt like, okay, he's doing the right thing, and maybe he might be the father. I don't know.
But it gets even more horrible when Judge Lauren asks Miss DeVos point blank if she had always known that the child could be another man's. And she says yes! So this entire time that Mr. Walker was emotionally and financially supporting her with the pregnancy, she'd been deliberately hiding the truth.
After I looked at my son, I just knew, like, he been here all this long, but I can't turn back now, not to tell him that he's not the father. He been here the whole pregnancy, he was there, so I'm like, it's too late, it felt.
And so like we seen over and over and over again, when you tell a lie, you just have to keep telling more lies.
Right. After this, the defendant confesses that she told the other man, who happened to be her ex, that he might be the father, and he told her that he'll help take care of the child. Additionally, the selfish woman claimed that she chose Mr. Walker because he lived close to her.
You cold-blooded because you told him he was the biological father.
Yes, I did. I didn't beg or ask him to be there. He had the option.
Ms. DeVos, now I'll let you stand here thus far and state your testimony. Now, you sitting up here acting like Satan's sidekick in here talking about you ruined your own life. I didn't have nothing about it. Nobody told you to stay. What's going on?
The whole "it's all about me" attitude of baby mama made Judge Lauren very angry. Nonetheless, Miss DeVos keeps insisting that it's Mr. Walker's fault for choosing to ruin his life, when in fact, it was her who asked him to raise the baby with her. Judge Lauren doesn't hold back and calls her Satan's sidekick.
Did you ever do a paternity test with the other man?
No.
You haven't?
No.
So how are you certain he's the child's biological father?
He looks just like him. They got family members that look identical too.
Despite that, you still allowed Mr. Walker to believe for the first 8 months of Kamani's life he was the child's biological father.
Yes.
The most heartbreaking part for Mr. Walker is that Kaimani had already started calling him Dada, but then Miss DeVos took him away from Mr. Walker, and now the boy is left without a father. Let's see if the DNA envelope will finally make amends for it or not.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Walker, you are not the father.
I'm sorry.
Who knew you'd be fighting paternity battles in court as a 24-year-old? Well, that's just the story of Miss Robinson, who has been left pretty confused about the identity of her dad. Mr. Rollins, the man she thinks is her father, is demanding a DNA test to prove that he's related to her at all.
Miss Palmer, all her life you have been telling her that Mr. Rollins is her biological father.
Yes, Mom.
You've never told her any other man was her biological father?
No.
And you've never gotten any level of recognition or acknowledgement from him?
No, I haven't.
Miss Robinson's mother, Miss Palmer, attests to the court that she's never been involved with any other man, and that Mr. Rollins is the one she slept with when she conceived her daughter. The plaintiff even grew up thinking that the defendant was her father, who happens to be a deadbeat.
I was on the school bus. My mama and him was on the porch. So when I had got off the school bus, I went upstairs, seen them talking, went and put my book bag down, ran back, talked to my mama, and I asked her, who was that man? She was like, that's your father. So I was like, are you sure that's my father? And she was like, yeah, that's your father.
It was clear that the young woman had a lot of resentment against Mr. Rollins, because when she was 9, she saw him talking to her mother in their apartment, and when she asked her mom who the strange man was, she told him it's your dad.
Do you remember a 9-year-old child saying to you, are you my daddy? Do you remember that?
I remember a child observing me, but not
Okay.
coming to me and saying that you are my father.
You see, that's what I'm talking about. He is not a man to own up to nothing. Like, if you my father, just say you is. If you ain't, you ain't. Like, come on now. You ain't got to do all this, switching your stories and stuff. That's not right.
And what about the potential daddy he allegedly slept with Miss Palmer 20 years ago? Which means that even if he doesn't want to be the father, he can't say anything until the results come out. Until then, he can't traumatize Miss Robinson anymore.
I'm not a name dropper,
You don't have to drop the name.
but I have associates.
Who are you talking about? What do you know?
The thing is, I can't prove it right now.
Okay.
But the only thing I can do is verbally tell you.
Verbally state it.
She had multiple parts. She was multitasking.
No, I was not. You probably were multitasking.
Miss Palmer denies to the court that she never slept with any other man when she conceived Miss Robinson. But the defendant discloses that he had a large number of friends who all admitted to him that Miss Palmer was sleeping around. But Miss Palmer says she only ever slept with an ex-boyfriend and Mr. Rollins.
Your Honor, I only had one boyfriend, and me and him had broke up when I had a 2-night stand with Mr. Rollins over there, and that's the only one. And when it came to his test, he was not the father, so I know he's the father. And
Okay.
I'm 100%.
So you've already had the other man tested.
Yes,
And
Your
he
Honor.
was not the father.
Yes.
Flash forward, Miss Robinson got in touch with Mr. Rollins over Facebook and even invited him to her baby's birthday party. But there was a catch. When Mr. Rollins showed up to the birthday, he didn't show up empty-handed. He came with a DNA test to settle the matter once and for all.
So did you bring the test, Mr. Rollins?
We both came to the conclusion that test, we had to send it off to get the results, so we gave up on that issue.
Okay, so that day you did not follow through with the test,
No.
even though he brought it,
No.
because you realized that it wasn't just about doing the swab that day, that you then had to mail it off,
Right.
pay fees. All right.
Mr. Rollins keeps insisting that he caught Miss Palmer with a friend of his, and even his friend would come back home boasting about it. But Miss Palmer keeps denying it. Miss Robinson believes that she looks a lot like Mr. Rollins' mother, but only the tests can show the truth now.
It has been determined by this court, Mr. Rollins, you are not the father.
Well,
You are not the father.
Some people are born knowing who their fathers are, but some unlucky ones don't really find out until they're fighting a paternity battle in court. In the case of Miles v. Turner, Mr. Miles has a simple mission: to prove he's the father of 37-year-old Christine.
Mr. Miles, you are in court today to prove to your 37-year-old daughter, Christine, that you are her father.
Yes, ma'am.
You admit you initially denied paternity when she was a baby, but are here to right your wrongs.
Yes, ma'am.
For the longest time, Christine was told by her mother that Mr. Miles was not her father, and that's why she refuses to believe this guy could be her real dad after missing out on her life for a whole 37 years. But looks like Mr. Miles had a change of heart.
Did your mother ever tell you anything about the relationship with Mr. Miles?
No, Your Honor, not until recently when I had asked her about Richard. And then she just kept on saying, he's not your father. I don't know why he's doing this now after 37 years.
So who did you grow up believing was your biological father?
I didn't.
Mr. Miles found out that Christine's mother was pregnant 2 months into a relationship with her. But he was only 17 at that time, and he only discovered everything about the pregnancy when they summoned him to court. Christine's mother never told him anything, and now she's saying he's not the father.
In 1992, we filed our taxes. Taxes came back, and there's a letter. You owe like $28,000 in back child support, and that just shocked me. Like I said, I just didn't have a clue that was even there.
And you didn't try to find out then?
I did, and all I had was my family, and nobody seemed to know where because I wasn't there. I was in Alabama.
Then one day, Christine stumbled upon her mother's mail and saw all the child support checks. That's when she realized that someone else had been taking care of her finances, but she was hurt that her mother hid that from her. So she stopped talking to her for a year.
Mr. Miles, well, you didn't even know who it was. You just knew they were child support checks? Did you know where they came from?
Well, I met Mr. Miles one time when I was 16. He came to my grandparents' house. My grandparents actually let me go stay the night with him and his wife. I was never told about them until that very day.
I thought we did, hit it off pretty good.
But Christine met him when she was 16. But why didn't he do anything then? Is all his talk about wanting to be a better dad just for show? After that night, according to Christine, he just disappeared. But turns out, Mr. Miles had gotten himself into a bit of a financial drain.
All we had was the grandparents' number.
And they would never answer yes, ma'am. Never got an answer from them. That's what I'm saying. It's like she just dropped off the face of the earth.
So you feel like he rejected you, and Mr. Miles, you feel like Miss Turner rejected you.
The best part about this situation is that even if nothing's clear right now, Mr. Miles and his wife are still more than ready to make up for their mistakes and provide Christine the fatherly support that she missed out on.
Well, Miss Turner's mother was unable to be here today, but she did send a statement. I met Rick at a bar and our relationship was not too serious and short term. He moved in with me. Shortly after Rick and I split, I started seeing another man and I became pregnant soon after.
After Judge Lauren reads the statement sent by Christine's mother, Mr. Miles is still firm on the fact that he's Christine's father, and it doesn't change anything for him. But the question is, if Mr. Miles is her real dad, is Christine willing to accept him?
Mr. Miles, you are not the father. I'm very sorry.
We've had a connection ever since the day that I met her mom because she was born and her mama said I was the father.
Paternity battles between married couples can be a wild ride, and this one's about Mr. Smith dragging his own wife to court to prove to her that their 4-year-old daughter Christina belongs to him and not to any other man.
Mrs. Smith, you admit that you allowed your husband to sign the birth certificate and initially believed he was Cookie's father, but as your daughter got older, she no longer looked like him. And now you believe another man is her dad. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
It's mind-boggling how a wife could do such a thing to her own husband. Their whole story started way back in middle school, and then they reconnected after high school. The match was so good, they got married. But then one day, Mr. Smith found something.
I saw text messages, some photos between my wife and some other.
What did you see? What was the exchange?
Well, it was like I miss you. When you miss a person, apparently you've seen them before. Nude photos.
Oh!
You know what I mean?
At first, Mrs. Smith starts making fun of her husband and keeps pestering him that he's lying. But the audacity of this woman to gaslight him in court Judge Lauren is obviously not having any of it, so she asks Mrs. Smith to be honest. And Mrs. Smith admits to sending explicit photos.
So at some point, Miss Smith, you find out you're pregnant.
Yes, ma'am. When I found out I was pregnant, we were very excited. I told Christian we weren't together. I thought that this could be a chance for us to reconnect and make our marriage work. He agreed, and shortly after we got back together.
Despite all the cheating, Mr. Smith wanted to save his marriage, especially when he found out his wife was pregnant. And he was so excited to see the birth of his daughter that even the doctors had to tell him to calm down. But then, things started going downhill.
The number that was on the CD, you know how people can pass out CDs?
Yes, their contact information.
Right, that number, it's just something about that number. I ain't forget about that number. And then I saw an Instagram name, so I immediately I look up their Instagram. So I'm scrolling, and I see somebody holding my daughter. With it.
What?
After seeing that Instagram post, Mr. Smith was crushed. He even told Judge Lauren that he can't bear seeing it even in court. Mrs. Smith then opens up about how she met Joseph, the man in the picture, when she and Mr. Smith were separated. One thing led to another.
You had sex with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you use protection?
No, ma'am.
Did you tell him you were married?
No, I did not.
So Cookie is now 4 years old, and you believe that she is this man's biological child?
Yes, Your Honor.
Not your husband?
No.
Mrs. Smith says she didn't tell Mr. Smith about Joseph because it happened when they were not together. But Judge Lauren thinks it's unfair that she kept the secret from him, especially when she found out she was pregnant and the baby could be another man's. So they bring Joseph into court.
Did she tell you she was married?
No, ma'am. I had no clue.
So when did you find out about the baby?
I don't know a time verbatim, but the first time that I've seen Cookie in person was she was 2 years old.
Did you ever find out she was pregnant at all 2 years before?
You know what? I don't even remember verbatim. I don't.
Joseph didn't meet Christina until she was 2 years old, but already he was convinced the girl was his. And he was even ready to be in her life, but he knew he couldn't because of Mr. Smith. Meanwhile, Mr. Smith raised the little girl, and now, only the results can tell these two men the truth.
The biological father is Mr. Prater. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. I know that was not the news you wanted.
That's tough.
Oh, I know.
But it doesn't matter. I'm gonna do what I gotta do. It's my baby. It's my baby.
It does. It infuriates me because why not? What did she do? Like, what did she do?
Your skin complexion. It's another cartoon picture, but look, hers is 7.8 inches wide.
Her shoulders look broad.
Not broad at all.
Broad, not broad, not broad.
In this explosive case of paternity court, tensions run high as Miss Mackenzie accuses Mr. Guy of abandoning their daughter, Anaya, and denying her paternity due to his alleged overwhelming number of children. The courtroom is gripped with curiosity as the truth unfolds, and the audience eagerly awaits the revelation that could change everything.
Well, when I told him that I was pregnant, he kind of like was shocked a little bit. Then he was like, "She gonna be my 13th daughter. Like, how can I take care of all of them?"
His what child?
13th kid.
13 kids, Mr. Guy?
No, Your Honor.
He told me he had 8. And then he said when I told him I was pregnant, he said 13.
You're definitely wrong about that.
No, Tim,
You're definitely wrong about that.
So you're saying before he told you he had 8?
Yeah.
Mr. Guy admits to sleeping with Miss Mackenzie without protection, but denies being the father. He claims he knew it from the moment the baby was born. However, Miss Mackenzie points out conflicting statements he made at the hospital. The court is left wondering why Mr. Guy denies this adorable baby, while both parties continue to trade accusations and confrontations.
When the baby was born, I was at the hospital, looked at the baby, I said, "This ain't my baby."
When we was at the hospital, he said my baby looked like his mom and his grandma. That's what he said.
Did you say that at the hospital, Mr. Guy?
I don't recall saying that.
You say you were having an intimate relationship with her. Why are you saying it's someone else's child?
Because the instances that I catch her telling lies.
The courtroom is on edge as Mr. Guy shares his doubts, revealing mysterious encounters with a man at their apartment while he was off work early. He confronts Miss Mackenzie about it, but she denies anyone being there. However, weeks later, the same man is spotted on their couch, deepening the mystery.
There was a dude standing right there. I'm like, where did he come from?
And I said, okay, well, it's an apartment. So he might have came out of any one of those apartments in front of our apartment. So I go in there and ask her, was somebody here? No, nobody wasn't here. But then weeks has passed. It's the same dude. He's sitting on the couch.
Miss McKenzie passionately defends herself, expressing her desire to build a strong family unit and expecting equal effort from Mr. Guy. She yearns for a harmonious relationship with his other children and encourages him to be responsible and get a job instead of getting drunk.
If you got all these other kids, I don't ever say, I'm not mean to his other kids. I wanted my kids to meet his other kids. I want them to be able to play with their brothers and sisters, not grow up dating their brothers and sisters. If he's doing something, if he's getting drunk, Tim, stop getting drunk and go get a job. Do stuff like that. Like, why am I not supposed to do that if I'm your girlfriend? Like, okay, so you said I'm not your girlfriend, so why would I be stressing you?
Tensions rise as Mr. Guy questions the consistency of Miss McKenzie's statements, claiming there could be other possibilities. Miss McKenzie vehemently denies any involvement with someone else and expresses her frustration at Mr. Guy's lack of involvement in their daughter's life.
Everything she's saying is inconsistent. Because like I said, I was there.
You was not there.
But
no birthdays, no Christmases, nothing.
He hasn't spent Christmas or
Nothing.
birthday.
She don't know who he is.
She doesn't acknowledge him.
He comes to our city where we live, and I have to call him and say, do you want your kids here? Yeah, I come and get them. He never showed up. He came and got them for Thanksgiving.
Emotions run high as Miss McKenzie opens up about her anger and regrets in their troubled relationship. She admits to making mistakes, but vehemently denies any infidelity. She desperately yearns for Mr. Guy's presence in their daughter's life and hopes for a genuine gesture on her birthday.
I get so angry at myself because maybe I did make some mistakes in our relationship. Not as far as like sleeping with other people, but being a B, you know, like cussing him out or getting angry. He wasn't doing what he was supposed to for our families. Maybe if I stressed him out, it was because I was angry. And I'm angry at myself that I allowed myself to get pregnant by him when I knew that maybe he wasn't capable of being a father.
The courtroom is filled with suspense as the moment of truth approaches. Mr. Guy and Mrs. McKenzie anxiously await the paternity results that could change their lives forever. Emotions run high as Judge Lake reveals the outcome, leaving both parties in shock. The audience is left hanging, eagerly anticipating the next steps and how this revelation will shape their future.
It has been determined by this court. Guy, you are her father. Speak.
I feel pretty much ashamed. I would like to be a father to her.
In a jaw-dropping episode of Paternity Court, the stakes are high as Miss Thompson confronts Mr. Smithbay, the man she claims abandoned her and their children. The suspense builds as paternity tests are sought for both Legend and Radiance, while a significant amount of child-rearing expenses hangs in the balance.
My kids deserve a father. Not only that, I'm tired of struggling with my kids. I need help so I can finish school, so I can take care of us better.
I actually do, Your Honor. We were never really in a relationship, and I do take care of them. I do what I can for the children, you know.
So you say it wasn't a relationship?
Just a sexual relationship, basically.
In a chaotic courtroom exchange, Mr. Smithbay and Miss Thompson clash over their tumultuous past. Allegations of abandoned responsibilities and questionable fatherhood fly back and forth, leaving the audience wondering who will emerge victorious. The tension escalates as their conflicting stories keep everyone on the edge of their seats.
Family members knew I stayed there. He also popped up to my house several times while I was pregnant with Legend.
That's not true, Your Honor. I came over once and actually someone was there. That's when I felt like maybe he was the father because he was there playing the father role. I mean, the way when I came, he left like she told him, okay, go ahead and leave. Like when she seen me, for what reason, I don't know.
In a heated exchange, Ms. Thompson and Mr. Smithbay confront their troubled relationship and failed attempts at co-parenting. Accusations of infidelity and broken promises add fuel to the fiery confrontation. Their emotional battle over the fate of their child grips the audience, leaving everyone wondering if they can find common ground.
Did she ask you about having a DNA test at the hospital?
No, she did.
Yes, I did.
And from that moment, once Legend came home, is he in his life, Miss Thompson?
Not for the past couple of months. They haven't seen him.
And it's not my fault. I haven't seen him. She told me to stop coming around. So if you don't want me to come to your house, I'm not going to come there.
You told him to stop coming around?
Because I don't want to be with him because he don't want to be faithful to me.
In a dramatic turn of events, Mr. Smithbay presents compelling evidence to prove that he is not the biological father of Legend. A visual exhibit showcasing shoulder measurements stirs excitement and disbelief among the audience. Ms. Thompson counters the claim, adding to the tension as the truth remains uncertain.
This is me right here. This is Legend. As you can see, my family, we have broad shoulders, 44 inches wide.
Your family.
This is my shoulder one, 44 inches wide. My other children, they have 14 inches wide shoulder length. Legend is 8.5 inches wide. He doesn't have broad shoulders at all, so therefore, that's why I feel like he's not mine.
He too.
Broad shoulders running
He not
the family.
10.
The tension escalates as the question of Legend's true father is raised. Despite Mr. Smith-Bay's claim, Legend refers to him as Dad. Ms. Thompson insists there's someone else involved, adding more intrigue to the situation. As they discuss Radiance's conception, conflicting accounts create further suspense, leaving the audience eager to discover the truth.
So he calls you daddy?
Yes, he does. He does, but at the same time, she has someone else playing.
Who is someone else?
What does he ask for his dad?
He also say, I'm gonna tell my daddy on you whenever I do something to him. He's like, I'm gonna tell my daddy. So I know that.
In a heart-wrenching moment, Miss Thompson passionately points out the striking physical similarities between Mr. Smith-Bay and their daughter Radiance. The tension builds as they examine the evidence, with emotions running high. As they scrutinize Radiance's features, the audience is left in suspense, waiting to see how this revelation will impact the paternity case.
She has your eyes, she has your nose, she has all that. Everything of you she has. Your skin complexion.
It's another cartoon picture, but look, hers is 7.8 inches
look,
wide.
her shoulders look broader
not
than
broad at all.
So I
she
don't
doesn't have
understand.
broad shoulders at all, so that's why I feel like she's
broad,
shoulder.
not broad, not broad.
Yes.
The tension reaches its peak as the results are announced, leaving the audience on the edge of their seats. Miss Thompson's emotional relief and realization add to the intense atmosphere, creating an unforgettable moment on paternity court.
It has been determined by this court, Mr. Smith-Bay, you are the father. I told you I saw the ears. That's all I gotta say. No, really.
In a riveting episode of Paternity Court, the explosive case of Coleman versus Coleman unfolds before a captivated audience. With a 7-year marriage on the line, Mr. Coleman accuses his wife of cheating and carrying another man's child. Meanwhile, Miss Coleman fervently defends her fidelity and hopes for reconciliation. Tensions soar as the truth awaits its dramatic reveal.
He's not the only one who has anything to lose. Like, it's my marriage, it's our family, it's what we have.
You've been together how long?
Coming up on 7.
And how many children do you have together?
4.
So this is a family.
Yes.
And so there is a lot at stake here.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
In a powerful and emotional moment on Paternity Court, Miss Coleman bravely shares her past struggle with addiction and low self-esteem. Despite feeling unworthy, she found comfort in Mr. Coleman's affirmations and stayed by his side. The audience is drawn into this heartfelt revelation, waiting anxiously to see how it unfolds in this gripping case.
When I first met him, I was 3 months pregnant. We were in addiction. Now, being that I didn't want to feel anything and I deemed myself worthy of anything, the things that he was saying to me like brought the connect. You know, like he would tell me, you don't have to do what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? And I stayed around for that.
Mr. Coleman opens up about discovering Miss Coleman's pregnancy and an STD at the same time. The audience is left in suspense, wondering how this revelation will impact the paternity case. Miss Coleman admits to her past mistakes and infidelity, adding to the intensity of the moment. The tension arises as the truth unfolds in this gripping episode.
You find out Miss Coleman is pregnant, your wife.
The STD at the same time.
Is that true, Miss Coleman?
No, Your Honor. I was on the streets. I was ripping and running. It was infidelity. I was very promiscuous. I masked a lot of things with men and drugs. I didn't always protect myself, and that's on me.
In a chaotic twist, doubts about paternity have pushed Mr. and Miss Coleman's marriage to the brink. Addiction, a serious issue they both faced, adds another layer of complexity. Seeking clarity, the court brings in an expert, Dr. Drew Pinsky, renowned for his experience in this area. The audience eagerly awaits his input, anticipating a pivotal moment in the case.
You find out he doubts it.
And that was a
And now the marriage is on the rocks because of this.
If it's not mine, it's a divorce.
Addiction affects not only the parties, but also their families and their children. Because of that, I wanted to call upon an expert that has a lot of experience in this particular subject area.
With emotions running high and the stakes at their peak, the court seeks the expertise of Dr. Drew Pinsky. his advice becomes crucial for the couple's troubled marriage. While couples therapy might be costly, Dr. Drew suggests free 12-step programs. His powerful reminder of the significance of sobriety serves as a turning point in their journey to healing.
I make a commitment every morning not to put one in me and to remain faithful. I've been doing it. I love you.
Do you have any last pieces of advice?
Of course, ideally, we'd love them to be into couples therapy, but that's costly. But there's 12-step programs that are free.
In the thrilling case of Coleman v. Coleman, the court stands on the brink of discovering the truth about the unborn child's father. The atmosphere is charged with anticipation, and the audience awaits the moment of truth with bated breath. The stakes are high, and the outcome remains uncertain, adding to the suspense of the proceedings.
It has been determined by this court. You are the father.
In this episode of Paternity Court, Mr. Jones and his mother bring Miss Mylan to court, accusing her of deceitfully claiming that their 3-month-old son, Quinil Jr., is his biological child. They seek DNA results to prove the truth, and Mr. Jones demands reimbursement for expenses incurred.
Well, Your Honor, I contacted the court 3 days after the baby was born because I watched my son break down at the hospital. You know, he was going to be devastated if this child wasn't his. It doesn't make sense to not know.
And so how did you two meet?
Her mother and my mother is neighbors.
In a riveting twist, Miss Mylan reveals that she stopped sleeping with her ex when she began a relationship with Mr. Jones. The tension escalates as Judge Lake questions whether they discuss the potential consequences of unprotected sex. Shockingly, Mr. Jones claims he was told by a doctor that he couldn't have children, adding more layers to the intriguing case.
So during a physical, they told you you would be unable to have children?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, it was at a point where they had got to the point where they were serious to the point enough for her and her kids didn't have anywhere to go. So I offered for her and her kids to come to my house. That's how I thought that they were in a relationship.
In a chaotic revelation, Mr. Jones admits that he left home after an argument with Miss Mylan, only to run into his ex at a bar the very next day. Judge Lake humorously points out that exes always seem to appear in such situations. Miss Mylan accuses Mr. Jones of frequently being with his ex during their relationship.
When we were together, it was so much going on at that time. That's when I got so upset when I seen the text. I hadn't even been thinking about the ex. She had been out the picture this time for a sec. The ex always superior.
Mr. Jones reveals that when he learned Miss Mylan had stopped taking her birth control, he took action and gave his son condoms. The uncertainty about the child's paternity lingers, and Mr. Jones emphasizes his commitment to be there for the child regardless of the results. He expresses his determination to create memories and be present as a father.
I gave my son some condoms because she has 6 kids already and I know she's fertile. Use them.
When you found out she was pregnant, even though she said it could be yours or it could be my ex's, did you step up?
Yes, ma'am.
You did?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure if it's a possibility of being my child, I want to be there. I don't want to miss nothing.
An emotional plea, Miss Mylan shares her hopes and fears about the paternity of her son. She prays that the child belongs to Mr. Jones, who has been there for her and the baby from the beginning. Mr. Jones's dedication is evident, even though he hasn't yet signed the birth certificate.
He was there the whole time, 2 months on up until now. He's been there. He's all.
And you named the baby Quinil.
Yes, I did.
So, what are your hopes, Mr. Jones and Miss Jones? Do you hope the child is yours?
Yes.
I pray.
We've been taking care of this child since the day he came out, Judge.
I love him.
In an emotional turn of events, the court reaches the crucial moment when the paternity test results are about to be revealed. Both Mr. Jones and Miss Mylan anxiously await for the truth to be unveiled, with their emotions running high. The tension in the room is palpable as everyone holds their breath, awaiting the life-changing verdict.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Jones, you are not the father.
She just fed you.
Fed me?
I thought she had you living in her house.
I fed all y'all.
Okay. Ladies, you are not her father. I'm so sorry.
Who says that women don't make mistakes? Because here's an example of Miss Greenhouse trying to prove to Mr. Thompson that he's the real father of her 7-month-old son, G. But Mr. Thompson's got plenty of reason to believe that someone else might be the biological father.
Mr. Thompson, you claim Ms. Greenhouse confessed to having sexual intercourse with another man 1 week before you reconnected from a break.
Yes, Your Honor.
You say it's impossible that you are her child's father.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Greenhouse dives into a long explanation about how these two have been together for a total of 11 years now, and even had a wedding planned. She's had another son with him, who's 4 years old, and all she wanted was to settle down and have a family with him.
I had my 4-year-old son, right? I went off to college. Right after I had my 4-year-old son, I got pregnant, and we tried to make it work there. In between the 4 years that after my son was born, we tried off and on, and it still hasn't worked out, and I just finally got tired of it. Every time I turn around is, you messing with this person, you're sleeping with this person, but he has my phone, he dropped me off and picked me up, so where is there time to cheat on you at?
Looks like their whole relationship was plagued with doubts and distrust, because while Miss Greenhouse calls Mr. Thompson an insecure and disrespectful man, he exposes the truth about her. He tells the entire court that while she claims to be with him, she was also sleeping with multiple other men.
It was never multiple partners, so don't ever come at me like that. You asked me
It's
who
not a lie. What I do?
2 weeks
What I
prior,
do?
Then we had sex. I
My
had
bad,
sex with
Mom.
somebody else.
What I do? I went through
2
your
weeks
phone.
prior.
I went through your
2 weeks
Facebook.
prior.
It ain't no 2 weeks.
She testified 2 weeks before. If so, how?
Like I said, around that time, we wasn't together. We was seeing each other a little cordially here and there, but not really.
But then Miss Greenhouse starts gaslighting him and saying that she did everything just to be with him, and that she was the one who had to cut ties with her family to make him happy. And when G was born, Mr. Thompson didn't have an issue then.
At the hospital with me and you didn't do that on the whiteboard. On the whiteboard, you didn't do
when
that.
he came out, she know I said something about him. He
Well, we was at the hospital when I gave birth to my
darker than
son.
my first boy.
Okay.
She know this. This is not the first time it came up when she contacted me.
He
This is
said
not
that
the
my
first
son
time.
let
I
me-
said something in the hospital.
Mr. Thompson,
when we was living together.
did you help choose the name?
I did it.
On top of that, Mr. Thompson had to sign the birth certificate, and according to Miss Greenhouse, she offered that they could get a DNA test to set his mind at ease. But when he agreed to it, Miss Greenhouse backtracked and said they don't do DNA tests at this hospital. Isn't that suspicious?
When I got my 4-year-old son back not too long ago, out of nowhere, Your Honor, he tell me, but that ain't my daddy.
But you got a whole girlfriend, so what am I
that
doing
ain't
now?
my
Why do it
daddy. I
matter?
said, what you talking about? It might be G daddy, but you my daddy. So I called her, I just summed it up. You shut up.
Mr. Thompson, let's be respectful to ladies.
Nah, see, that's his problem. He's disrespectful.
Ma'am.
As far as managing the baby's expenses, Mr. Thompson has tried his best to contribute. He pitches in to get the baby his formula and the diapers, but it seems like Miss Greenhouse has an agenda to make him spend all of his money using the baby as an excuse.
A baby needs formula, a baby needs diapers. He don't move on your time. He don't move on your time.
I do the world. I give him the world. And they know that. Anybody know that. I did it for her kids, did it for her sister, son. Don't lie. Don't sit here and lie.
All right.
Because I done fed you.
All right.
And she done fed you.
Fed me?
How much she had you lived in her house? I fed all y'all. Okay,
Ultimately, Miss Greenhouse realizes she can't have it her way any longer and admits to the court that Mr. Thompson's been a pretty great dad so far. But all the constant bickering between these two has definitely gotten out of hand. And only the results can bring some peace back now.
Mr. Thompson, you are the father. You are the father.
I feel more relief.
For what? And you knew this from jump.
No, I didn't.
You knew this from jump.
You knew I had doubts from jump.
Everyone's entitled to their beliefs or doubt.
Mr. White has a lot of resentment against his ex-wife, and it's for good reason. The poor man was seriously wronged when he recently found out that Miss Mock revoked his parental rights for his daughter Tasha. And turns out she had some pretty evil reasons for doing so.
Mr. White, you've brought your ex-wife to court today because you believe she mysteriously had your parental rights revoked for a girl you believe was your biological daughter, thus allowing another man to adopt her.
Yes, Your Honor.
But Miss Mock has other plans for today's hearing. According to her, she doesn't want anything to do with Mr. White and is 100% sure that he's not Tasha's biological father. In fact, after today's results, she never wants to see him again. But is that what Tasha wants?
She was 2 months pregnant when I went to jail. At that time, she must have believed I was the father because she put my name on the birth certificate. I was not able to do anything about it because I was incarcerated. 30 days after Tasha was born, she brought her to the jail. About a year after that, she petitioned the court to involuntarily terminate my parental rights to both my son and to Tasha.
Even though Mr. White once spent time in a prison, it seems like he's the voice of reason and sanity here. While he was locked up, he taught himself law and learned that his wife had been playing him. All the times he wrote his kids letters from prison, they never got them. Wonder why.
At some point, your rights were completely taken away.
Mrs. Mock had told me that she was going to have Tasha adopted anyway because she was not my daughter, that another man had sired her.
So, the first time Miss Mock told Mr. White that Tasha was someone else's daughter, it really broke Mr. White's heart. Because while they were married, Miss Mock went ahead and slept with another man. And that's why she knows he's not Tasha's true father.
He was always leaving me, going out with other women. Why should I have to deal with that?
So are you saying because he would leave you and go out with other women, you would sleep with other men?
Nope, I slept with one. I was dating him. And when I got home from the grocery store, Mr. White was sitting holding my son. I was pregnant.
According to Tasha's birth certificate, Mr. White was her real dad. But then Miss Mock one day confronted her and said that Tasha's a Mock now, which means the guy who adopted her was her dad. And that's when Miss Mock stopped her children from visiting Mr. White in jail.
Ms. Mock, what is the motive behind all of this?
I was trying to protect them.
You were trying to protect your children because you didn't want them to have to go back and forth to jail to visit their father? Or were you trying to protect Tasha because you didn't believe Mr. White was her father?
That was partial.
Between all of this, it was Tasha who really suffered. She got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and when she realized life was too short, she decided to reach out to Mr. White on Facebook, because all she wanted was a genuine connection with a fatherly figure.
You say these 30 years have been filled with so much pain.
Yes, I have. I lost my only son, and the first time I saw her was at my son's funeral.
You were asked to leave.
Yes, I was. Tasha didn't want me there. She had been told all her life how much of a bad individual that I was, and she didn't think it was right for me to be there.
So, in light of all the emotional distress that Miss Mock has put Mr. White through, he's also suing her for $5,000 as compensation. But Miss Mock claims she doesn't owe him anything, and in the middle of this crossfire stands Tasha, wondering what the truth is.
Mr. White, you are not the father.
I'll still will do.
Mr. White, are you all right?
Yes, Your Honor, I will be.
I know it's not the news you wanted.
I told this young lady when she first stepped into my life I'd help her find the truth.
Miss Lassio and Mr. Abbott are about to go head-to-head against each other just to prove who really is little Aubrey's biological father. Miss Lassio shares that even before this paternity issue, her relationship with this man was nearing its end.
I made a mistake, but I know he is the father of Aubrey. Our relationship has been very bumpy. Jacob has no trust in me at all. He has a tracker on my phone. The day that I got the call from the courtroom, he was moving out. He had packed his stuff. He was ready to be out of the door.
Turns out that things had taken a very serious turn between the two because Mr. Abbott had made up his mind to leave. In fact, he had even packed up all of his stuff. But when the court called, it was like a prayer was answered for these two.
Her family members started buying her maternity clothes and so forth, and she had like a guilty conscience, and then that's when she told me she had messed up and she had slept with the other dude, that this could possibly not be my child. I asked her, what do you mean? She told me that I could only be the possibility.
Well, looks like Miss Lassio has been pretty deceiving with her looks. She looks innocent, but with how she cheated on her partner with another man on Easter? Now that's simply unforgivable. And when the conception dates for the pregnancy add up, it screams trouble.
So when I was hanging out with one of my friends and I reached out to another guy, and whenever I reached out to him, we ended up hooking up. We hooked up one time, and then I was back together with Jake.
And when you say hook up, that means you had sex?
Yes.
Did you use protection?
No, we did not.
It's pretty apparent from the look on Judge Lauren's face that she's absolutely disappointed with this woman, who goes ahead and sleeps with someone else just because they had a fight with their boyfriend. On top of that, she just wanted revenge from this guy.
She also cheated on me with him a year ago, kept it a secret, and thankfully for my friend telling me if he would have never told me, I still wouldn't know to this day. She sat there and lied to me the whole time, saying she didn't do anything. There's nothing to worry about. I wouldn't do this to us.
But it looks like this cheating thing of Miss Lassio wasn't a one-time thing. In fact, it had become a habit, and Mr. Abbott caught her several times in the act. Miss Lassio admits that she never thought she could ever get caught, But once that happened, it was game over for her.
The way that Jake is with her, I believe that's only something a father and daughter can have. I know there's step-parents out there that have great relationships with their children. When he walks in the room, the way that she crawls after him first, the way that she'll throw a fit until her dad will look down at her and pick her up, that's not something a step-parent or anyone in the world can have.
The worst part for Mr. Abbott is that throughout the pregnancy, he was a true gentleman to Miss Lassio and supported her. And when baby Aubrey was born, he felt a very special connection to her, but the doubts kept torturing. And now, he has to know the truth at all costs.
Were you at the hospital when the baby was born?
I was.
Did you go to doctor's appointments?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you participated?
Yes, Your Honor.
And when you were at the hospital, did you sign the birth certificate?
No, I did not sign the birth certificate. And
You did not?
No, I did not, and that was a very awkward moment because I wasn't sure if Aubrey was mine.
Seeing how Mr. Abbott talks about Aubrey, it's clear that in his heart, he's hoping she's his daughter, despite all the stuff that's been exposed about his wife in this hearing. The only thing that can save this relationship at this stage is the piece of paper with those DNA results.
Mr. Abbott, you are not her father. I'm so sorry.
Miss Galloway certainly has had a rocky past, and that includes becoming pregnant at the age of 14. And now she's here in court to prove to Mr. Harris that he's the real father of her twin babies. But seeing her reckless past, it seems like he doesn't really believe her.
I do occasionally see him in the churches playing or whatever, so I do start conversating with him. And then there was a situation where he was going to be walking. He said he was walking from Chance Hospital in Jacksonville to not even know where he was going to go. And this was Christmas Eve. And I said, okay, well, I don't have my kids this evening. It's cold outside. You're going to be walking by yourself. You know what? I'll meet you.
But Mr. Harris is no different either. The first time he became a father was when he was almost 13 years old. Even Judge Lauren is shocked and asks the two of them why on earth they're having babies at such a young age. Anyway, things took a wild turn between these two.
You did not use protection.
No, we did not use protection, and it was like maybe 3 minutes, and then he was like, okay, I have to use
3 minutes, 45 minutes.
You mean
45 minutes?
You mean 4 to 5 minutes?
You saying
'Cause it was
30?
not no 4 to 5 minutes.
Well, it was long enough to potentially produce 2 beautiful babies.
So by throwing caution to the wind and not using any protection, Ms. Galloway ended up missing her period right after her nightly encounters with Mr. Harris. So she takes a pregnancy test 2 weeks later and shows the results to Mr. Harris.
January 18th is when I took the home pregnancy test. And that's when I sent him the text message and the pictures. Now, right after that, I went to the emergency room and she said that you have 2 babies. And I'm like, okay, 2 babies, you got the wrong person. She was like, no, this is you. You're 10 weeks long now. 2 babies right here, I see.
But according to Mr. Harris, he was kept in the dark about the pregnancy. In fact, he found out that he had 2 daughters through Facebook. It was when Miss Galloway had posted pictures of both of the twins that it seemed like she was trying to embarrass him.
He stopped calling like he used to, and she's not here today as a witness, but the lady that I stayed with, she saw everything that happened. She was the one who was listening to the phone calls. She was like, I don't know why you're doing this. And even a friend, Lonnie, was telling me you don't want to.
Your ex-boyfriend that you was with before you was with me?
You don't want to. That's a lie.
Given their history, it's understandable why Mr. Harris is suspicious about the paternity of these 2 kids. In fact, he knows Miss Galloway slept with some other guy from church called Lonnie, but Miss Galloway keeps denying that fact. So, who's telling the real story?
You told me out your own mouth. Just like the boyfriend you had before you met me and had sex with me, you
are trying to throw up everything that you can.
It ain't no case. You only want child support.
Are you serious?
Your Honor, when it comes to claiming, I'm far from a deadbeat because I take care of anything I make. I went on and did my research. First of all, if you say they're my kids, you don't got nothing in the father's space.
But the saddest part is that when Mr. Harris asks Miss Galloway who's mentioned on the children's birth certificates, she stays silent. Then the evidence is presented to the court where the birth certificates have a blank space where the father's name should have been.
DCF has been trying to get in contact with him.
That's a lie.
I call him, when are you going to take paternity test? Because they're looking for you. Oh, you can just give them my number. They need to know who you are.
That's not true. You've been calling my other baby mama in the inbox
and DCF said, hey, we send these things to 2 different addresses. We've been trying to get to him, but we can't get to him.
Eventually, Lonnie and Mr. Harris end up exchanging a couple of not-so-friendly words, with Lonnie calling Mr. Harris a lot of names. Judge Lauren asks them to behave, and it's pretty clear Miss Galloway is trying to slander Mr. Harris. Well, it's time for the truth to come out once and for all.
Mr. Harris, you are the twins' father. My research says that you're in fact the biological father.